Howdy, howdy. We are alive on another Friday night to talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Deck Season 3 Reflections. And I am joined by the one, the only Starfleet boy himself.
Hey man, this Starship Texas is lame. Look at the nacelles, they suck. Like,
Oh,
what the
what a
hell?
what a
Why is
jerk thing to
engineering there?
say. Are
What's wrong with this shit? Is it trying to be a Galaxy class, or is it trying to be
Wait a
an
minute, wait a
Excelsior
minute.
class?
Normally Starfleet boy is this like corny old man. Have you reverted to like a meaner, younger version of yourself?
What are you talking about, man?
Oh, this is going to be an interesting show. Uh, but no, I'm really excited to talk about this. I see that we have some people in the live audience already, so I hope that they're
Woo.
excited to uh, participate in our conversation in the chat. And everyone, listening later, I hope that you're ready because there's a lot to unpack and go over here. So let's just go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fathery,
I'm Starfleet boy.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Thank you, Jill 47. I'm back. Red Starfleet boy is gone. Oh crap! I haven't changed my name from Marcelo's stream.
Yeah, I was wondering what was up with Willow the Wisp, but while you're fixing that, I'll do the
Thank
intro and the
you.
housekeeping. Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 209th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Discovery. I do that all the time. There's
Dang.
too many damn shows. Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 9, Reflections, written by Mike McMahan and directed by Michael Mullen. But before we get into that, I just want to give a special thank you and shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate all of you who chip in a little bit every month to help us keep the show going. And that's going to be you, Starfleet Boy, but also Cake is Eternal, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, Crazy Dutchy, Joe Ann Robertson, Quarks Bar, John Dawes, and our anonymous supporters. Thank you all so much from the bottom of our hearts. And you can sign up on the Tex-Trek Patreon at various different tiers. We have different perks, but you can come in as little as $2 per month, and it goes a long way to help us out. It all adds up over the course of a year, and really helps with a lot of our expenses, like the podcast hosting, the StreamYard subscription, the website hosting. So thank you for doing that. Those who do, and it means a lot to us. And if you're unable to help financially, but you still want to support the channel, you can always subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. I've promised I will sing the dreaded god-awful song that I hate more than anything, but the Enterprise theme song, Faith of the Heart, I will on video sing that entire song, every word, for all of you who want to torture me. If you can get us up to 1,000, we only need like a few dozen more. So it's got to be by the end of the year, though. After New Year's Eve, after the stroke of midnight on December 31st, I promise I will not do that. So you gotta get them in before the deadline.
Jill 47 in the audience. Can you tweet that so I can retweet it? Because that's hilarious.
Oh, what did she say?
Jill says so. They're talking about the butt bugs already, and in the audience, and Jill said a group of butt bugs is called a
Okay,
conspiracy, and I
like
love
like a
that.
group of crows is called a murder.
Murder of crows, yeah. So
Okay,
it's like the best thing ever.
got it. Okay, neat. I like it. Approved. That is now official canon.
A conspiracy of butt bugs.
Uh,
Delicious.
but some Star Trek news coming up though. On October 8th, just in a few weeks, we will have a Star Trek universe presentation at New York Comic Con. So I'm sure there's going to be coverage of that over on Trek Central, and we'll do something on Tex-Trek to break all of that down. But yeah, expect big stuff for Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Discovery, and Star Trek Prodigy, and who knows what else. The entire TNG cast is going to be there. Sonequa Martin Green and Michelle Paradise and Alex Kurtzman are going to be there. Rod Roddenberry is showing up. That's a lot of Discovery stuff. Oh, and like a lot of the Prodigy voice actors and the Hageman brothers, creators of Star Trek Prodigy. They'll all be present. So that'll just be a couple weeks before Prodigy returns on October 27th. So I'm looking forward to New York Comic Con. I'm looking forward to the return of Prodigy. There's going to be lots of cool stuff from Tex-Trek coming down the pike later in the year.
It's super exciting, and I was already really excited about Picard, but I feel like there's gonna be some good Picard stuff there.
Yeah, we might get a new trailer. The last trailer we got, it's still kind of a teaser, so I think we might get like a bit of a story trailer that actually, tells us a little bit of. Not that I want to know too much going in, but
I'll watch the trailer several times for you, Father. I'll let you know if it's okay.
No, I will watch it. I will cover it. I will do that for my audience. I don't know if y'all know this about me, but I feel like I probably mentioned it before, but I don't watch trailers like other things I like other than Star Trek. If I know I'm gonna watch it, I skip the trailers. It's like, well, I'm so busy doing all the Star Trek stuff. I'm distracted by Star Trek all the time. I can just skip the trailers for like Marvel movies or stuff like that, and then I just go into all of those, totally blind. And I find it actually extremely rewarding. I try to like know as little about anything before I watch it. And it definitely helps. But
I like trailers for Star Trek. There's very few things that I won't watch a trailer for, though. But trailers is as far as I go. I don't want to know leaks. I don't want to know too much,
yeah,
about what's going
it's
to be
fun
in the
being
show.
surprised. And the
Yeah.
story, a lot of the storytellers want to surprise us. So I try
Oh
not
yeah.
to deny them that
Can I
opportunity.
can I get one more little thing in about Star Trek Picard? Father, I know you can just edit this out for the podcast audience, but I just got to say I've been binging 12 Monkeys, and I was already excited about Terry Matalis or Metalis, but
Metalis.
yeah, Metalis. But now I am just through the moon excited. Like I feel like we're in for a really good treat.
Dude can write. Dude can run a
the,
show.
the dude can write, develop a show, direct. I mean, he's awesome.
And he's like that same level of like Star Trek fan writer producer that we have, I think, with Aaron Watke on Prodigy or Mike McMahan on Lower Decks. And I think Henry Alonso Meyer has like a bit of that himself too.
And
So
remember, Terry was on Star Trek. He was part of the
yeah,
production team for Voyager. I want to
Voyager and
say as
Enterprise. He was a
and
baby
Enterprise. Yeah,
writer under Brandon Braga's wing back in
yeah,
the old days.
yeah.
So
But
um,
yeah, he's gonna pour a lot of love into it. I know
in
because there's
fact,
a lot of
that's how dedicated
there's a
he is.
lot of
Like
love. Yeah.
right when he got out of college, he's like, okay, the job I want most is to work for Star Trek. Let me
That's
like
awesome.
see if I can work my way into that writer's room. And yeah, so it's like, it kind of sucks that like he was so young, but like by the time he was like coming up in the industry was right around the time Star Trek was leaving television for a little bit. But
Yeah.
time was kind to him. Not only the guy who loves time traveling, but like time was
He
kind
does.
to
He
him,
loves
and
it.
this opportunity return, and hopefully we get him for something else after Picard. Hopefully the season 3 of Picard has like a positive reception, and yeah, he's definitely said multiple times, he's made it known he would love to do more Star Trek. So but
I'm lobbying for
yeah,
Terry to do whatever he
it
wants with
sounds like
Stargate.
there's nothing going on with him right now. And I mean, he did keep it a secret for a long time that the entire TNG cast was returning for Picard season 3. He sat on that for a long time. So I don't know. Maybe they're sitting on something now, but it sounds like there's nothing like official, like on paper. I think they're just waiting for that season 3 of Picard to actually like come out. I mean, like they probably have like a sense if it's good or not, just based on, like, I'm sure like with Strange New Worlds, they're like really confident with Strange New Worlds before it came out. And but I think that they're still gonna just wait and see before they figure out exactly what they're gonna do next, and kind of continue that 25th century time period, I think, in some form.
I really hope so. All right, that's enough Star Trek Picard. Sorry,
Enough Picard.
I
we
do. I
gotta we
derailed
gotta get
us.
down to the lower decks. Yeah,
Yes, let's
we
do
can't
it.
we can't
Let's
be
do
talking
it.
about an admiral. We gotta talk about like these ensigns, right?
It's true.
Well, let's talk about them. I'm just going to recap the episode reflections real quick by reading the official synopsis, and then I'll kind of expand on that with spoilers. But the official synopsis reads: Mariner and Boimler work the Starfleet recruitment booth at an alien job fair. Rutherford challenges himself. But yes, we have the job fair B story where we see Boimler go nuts. But in addition to that, we have this Rutherford story where we get some of the Rutherford backstory, some of the mysteries of the implant that have been teased for a long time are revealed. Not everything, but we know that he was a bit of a I don't know, a bit of an a-hole as a young man, a bit of a
A
jerk, a bit of
bit.
a loner, still a genius engineer, but when he was injured in this accident, he was given this implant by weird, shady, Badmiral type Starfleet people, and when it reverted, when he turned back into a jerk, he kind of has this internal struggle with his younger self. But the Rutherford that we know and love, that we've enjoyed for 2.5 seasons of the show, comes out on top, and his younger self, I guess, like dies, like fades away. But yeah, we're left with still questions, but we have some answers. So
And I think psychologically speaking, it was more of it looked like a death, but it was an integration in a way because our Rutherford will now remember, like he gives him that like remember thing at the end, right?
yeah,
So
even though
now
they don't integrate, he still has like an awareness of that
an
part of
awareness, but he
himself.
also has like he's allowed to keep those memories, I guess. Like he was able to transfer
Right,
those
right.
important memories and stuff like that. I think it's so deep that they like went there. I mean, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, more when we get to that scene, but yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff that they did.
Well, before we get into specifics like that, let's just talk about like our broad impressions of the episode as our opening statements. But I'll just go first with mine, and then I'll ask you yours. But for me, this episode just came off as so like well balanced. The way that, speaking of integration, I think here we have like an integration of like cool science fictiony type concept, but also big emotional stuff, but also the humor the show is always striving for, but also continuing like the big becoming a responsible Starfleet officer, with Boimler exploring his bold side. It was just so well balanced. And that's something that I always try to point out in storytelling when I think they do a good job, because I think a lot of it is a balancing act. I think a lot of telling stories, you are on like a tightrope, and you have to have enough of this but not too much, and enough of this. And when you have like that, it kind of like Thanos in the Marvel movies, where he's like obsessed with like balance and everything. But I think that's what good storytellers do. They know when to add in some jokes with some levity, when to hit you with like some emotional stuff, when to go a little dark, when not to go too dark. And this is a great example of Lower Decks. The show has really it came out of the gate knowing what it was doing in the first few seasons, but it's built on top of that. And uh, yeah, it's just like firing on all cylinders, on all thrust. They're flying on all thrusters, I'll say. I was extremely impressed with this episode. It is easily my favorite of the season, which is saying a lot because I really liked episode 3, Mining the Mind's Mind. So, but
And we know what's
I like
coming
this
too a
more.
little bit. Yeah,
Yes,
and
and then
so
we know
yeah,
what's
it's like
coming next to. So this is a tough act to follow, but
yeah.
like boy howdy, this the biggest achievement of this episode for me is I guess I always liked Rutherford, but I didn't like love him as much as Tindy or Mariner or Boimler and all those other characters. They had like a little bit more substance, a little bit more for me to like sink my teeth into and chew on. Tindy having like her whole like Orion past, but also, transitioning from like a medical officer to a science officer. Mariner and Boimler, they're both getting interesting arcs and kind of had all along. Rutherford was always great. I liked him. Fun dude. I laughed at his funny moments and stuff. I get like concerned when like his life is on the line, but he was kind of flat. But this really fleshed him out and made him one of the most interesting characters on the show. So now I'm just as invested in Rutherford as I am the other three characters, and that was a big accomplishment for this episode, and a little game changing in good ways going forward. But Sohel, what about you? What did you think of Reflections?
I agree with everything you said about the show and about like how it was written and everything. Mike McMahan, awesome. And is this the first one he's done of the season, right? Like I feel like this was
I believe.
yeah,
I mean,
I
he's
didn't
gonna
have a
have like
chance to go back and check, right?
he's gonna have final say on like every script. So I'm
Yeah.
sure like we've felt his influence throughout the first
No, of
four.
course he's the showrunner, but it was interesting that he wrote this nice little
Yeah.
episode 5, because I feel like usually you get the opener and the closer, like that's just the standard, but you could do whatever you want, like everything kind of, all those things work. But I think the only thing I'd like to add is just that how powerful the message, like Star Trek is all about, like really, not all about I always say things like that. One of the things that Star Trek is about, or that I feel like stands out about Star Trek for me personally, is this idea of redemption, or like, that no matter like redemption, rehabilitation, right? And in a very interesting and kind of um unique way, they were able to show us Rutherford's story of redemption from being this like awful person. I mean, in the audience, I think Braxton mentioned how he pushed Tendi. I mean, like he's violent and he was awful to Barnes, and if that's the way Rutherford used to be, then there is a redemption that took place. Sadly, it's a little traumatic because what happened is he got messed up, and so then he became a new person from this injury. But even still, having to confront his past self, meet his past self, like get to kind of reckon with his choices and stuff like that. And he was like so against it. He was like, no, stop. I loved it. I loved the struggle, and that he was helpless. So to me, it was just like amazing how this show that's like, I think of Lower Decks as the Star Trek show that's breaking new ground in a way that, like, I know that we've had an animated show before, but I'm talking specifically about the like intentional, constant comedic aspect of the show. But here it got serious in these like really remarkable ways that are very Star Trek to me, that are at the core of like the Star Trek philosophy. And then of course, to me, I think my favorite part of the episode, even though the serious bits were all wonderful, are the Boimler just going out of control. I loved it. To me, it was just like therapeutic in an
That
odd
was
way.
great.
Yeah, it was super great.
I was laughing my ass off during that.
that
Just
yeah,
yeah.
I don't often comment on the writing or like the like the technical parts of the show. I'm more like concerned with like the story and the lore, and just like how it ties into the Star Trek universe at large, and stuff like that. But I have to say that this episode was an awesome flex by Mike McMahan, because the Boimler stuff just like killed me, and it's so funny and meta and relevant, and like there's just so many things that I've been in debates about. And so I love it. I loved it. That's my opening statement, Father.
Well, let's get into the episode breakdown and just start off with the opening at the beginning. We have that cold open on Rutherford's flashback dream. We learn later that it's from, I guess, the too much cash building up in his implant, and also the other personality trying to break through. But yeah, we get
Right.
glimpses of this impulse engine exploding in his face, and I laughed at this when he wakes up from his nightmare screaming, which you see a lot in TV. I don't know if people ever actually like do this. I
I've
think I've
done it. I've
mentioned that
done it.
before, but yeah,
I've
when he
100%
screamed, and
done
then Fedorov, who just got a name last week, but yeah,
it.
towel guy walking around in a towel. He had like that girly scream also when Rutherford like scared him. I don't know. That was just like Like
Yeah,
the
it
like
was
the
funny.
audio gags like that are like really funny in the show. So, it started off on a great foot with me. I was like enticed. I was like, oh my god, we're getting like the Rutherford backstory. They said we were gonna delve into this in season 3, and they teased it in season 2, and this is so cool. And then also like this joke with Fedorov. So got on a great foot with me, and we lose Boimler and Mariner for the they're gonna go do the B story, so we'll talk about that later. But yeah, there hasn't been as much Rutherford spotlight until now, so I'm glad that it's finally like his turn. I'm sure this is all set up for more to come, but and the use of Tindy, that I still think that they're trying to build eventually like a romantic relationship between Tindy and Rutherford. In fact, they kind of seem to be dragging their feet on that. I was kind of thinking it might have blossomed by now, but yeah, she's the one who actually like clears the cache in his implant, allowing mean young Rutherford to manifest. So, what did you think when you first saw that implant change from a blue screen to a red screen, and then he's acting, behaving, talking, still kind of like Rutherford, but also noticeably very different. What did you think?
I was definitely excited. I was like, "Uh-oh, what's this?" Like that kind of thing. But immediately, I thought it was interesting, like, because we know Rutherford loves the ship, and before we see the reflection, and all that, I thought it was interesting because I was like, "Oh, like there's these clues. Like he speaks different. He's like using a kind of like different kind of slang, if you will. Like I don't know, he just seems gruffier, or rougher around the
Yeah, he's
edges, if
rougher
you
around
will.
the
Yeah,
edges. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good way
yeah.
of
He's like,
describing it.
and so I was like, whoa, immediately struck by that. And so I gotta say, like, that's pretty awesome that Eugene Cordero could like do the same character but with like just a slightly different take, and you can kind of see it and hear it in the performance, which is cool. But yeah, I loved all this stuff. I was laughing when he was describing the nacelles on the
Yeah,
Cerritos and like
those are the
criticizing the
ugliest
shit.
nacelle. Yeah, why is engineering down there? This is one of the more meta episodes, and it's meta in ways that I think really work and aren't like too like fourth wall breaky. Like I
Hmm.
actually see the stuff being in universe, and it was a lot of fun. And another reason why I think I liked this episode so much, I've talked before about it. Sometimes Lower Decks is like a little too goofy for me. That like I feel like it doesn't kind of make sense for the Star Trek universe, and so I love the show, but sometimes it does do that, and it kind of pulls me out of it a bit. But episodes like this, where it never really crosses that line, when the show doesn't do anything like that bothers me. uh I really love this show. It's like, oh, this is my favorite show that's on right now. This is one of my top 5 Star Trek shows of all time. When it's not doing that stuff, I love it. So I yeah, I was excited. Nothing to really bitch about in this episode. But the
Joanna Robertson in the audience says that I thought it was the mirror universe. I had that same thought. I wondered
mm,
for a second, like, but then I remembered the glitchy thing, so I was like, but yeah, there was like for a moment I was like, ooh, are we gonna get a? Because Lower Decks hasn't done a mirror universe episode yet, and I don't know if it's a good tradition that needs to keep going through all the Star Trek shows, but but so
yeah,
far Picard did it, and so
I
like
love
who
the
knows?
mirror universe, but I feel like a little mirror universe out right now.
But we definitely got a glimpse of a mirror, a mirror,
But
a different side
they showed it in I
of
Excretus on the
Rutherford.
holodeck.
That's
They
right. That's right.
they showed
Oh
us
yeah, that's
mirror. We
right.
got mirror Rutherford there when
That's
him and
right.
Mirror Billups were talking about torturing makes them horny, and being horny makes them want to torture or whatever. I could
A
lose a whole
vicious
day in
cycle.
that cycle.
A vicious cycle. A
But no,
vicious cycle.
for some reason, I pieced together almost immediately this was like a past Rutherford memory. Like, oh, like did he used to be
Yeah.
a jerk? Did he like go like undercover as a good, not to spoil another sci-fi show, Babylon 5, but there's a character on Babylon 5 who you learn like, oh, their entire personality was a lie, and they're actually like this bad guy who like had like this new personality created so they could like go undercover. I thought like, is it something like that, or is it like his past self? So I understood it pretty quickly what was happening. But yeah, the
I
young
understood it right away
Rutherford,
when this scene, yeah, it came up. Yeah.
he's still Rutherford-ish. Like when like he's arguing with him, like, tell me when the security shift changes, and Rutherford's like, no, and he's like, okay, fine, 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 fine. Like those little like mannerisms and stuff. They're different from Rutherford, but they're close enough that like I okay, I can see them being like our Rutherford is like, okay, after like he got brain damage and like made him nice, but like this is when he was rough around the edges, like you said, like he was like this other
So
dude.
so how old do you think Red Rutherford is? He's in the academy, so he's
I
probably
don't. I
like
hate
in
calling
it.
him Red Rutherford. By the way, I see people doing that on the internet, and
That's
it
because
could,
Eugene Cordero did it.
on did he do it on the Ready Room or something?
Yeah, yeah, that's why everyone's doing it.
Okay, I was just
Just
gonna
so you
call him
know,
Young Rutherford, but yeah, Red Rutherford is that seems weird to me because he's. I was like,
it's like
he's not
Red Rum.
red. This is like, why are people
Red
saying that?
Rutherford is here. His little eyepiece is
I
red
know, but
though.
like that's such like a. I wouldn't. I don't look at him and like think like, okay,
Rutherford
that
is
one's
not
red and
here,
that one's
fathery.
blue.
Rutherford is not here, fathery.
This ain't
It's
no
Red
the
Rutherford.
shining red rum finger puppetry.
All right, fine. Young
No,
Rutherford.
we'll call him
How young?
red if that's what they're like officially using. But I'm not I'm doing it under protest. Uh,
You hear that, Mr. Cordero?
but I think he's 18 or 19, and I think the other one is 28 or 29 because they said like about a
So that's
decade
a
ago.
yeah, that's like a significant difference in many
Sure,
people's
yeah,
lives, right? Like, yeah, so it makes sense that even without the accident, you know, young Rutherford would have eventually become like a probably a more chilled out,
yeah, he would have matured, like
version. Yeah, he would
hopefully.
have matured and
But
stuff
he
like
was
that.
definitely
But
a hellraiser as
he's
a
a
young
wild child,
18,
that
19 year
guy,
old.
yeah, but also kind of cringy, man. Like I was really upset at like his treatment of the ladies or just anyone, in fact. Like
Ensign
not, it's
Barnes
like
when he is like,
yeah, that
"Hey
was
Trill," like that's
yeah.
that's really messed up. That's like
Terrible. Yeah,
I don't
do
know,
those
like kind of
spots go
like
all the way down?
speciesist.
So terrible. And then he was also he pushed Tendy, and it was like terrible, and I don't know, it was just he was an awful person, Rutherford. But like I said earlier, redemption I think is a huge thing in Star Trek, and so we kind of got to see that, like, yeah, there was this awful person, and look who he is now,
I mean, I don't
and that
know if
was a
I can
cool thing.
agree with that because to become like the current Rutherford, he basically had to get like brain damage, memory erased, like new personality. So I feel like
But
he
here,
is
that's what I'm
almost
saying
like a
is
different person.
but that's what I'm saying is this episode kind of like does it in a episode. Like it does it in a way that like this is his moment. This is how he confronts that, even though he's no longer responsible
I,
for it in a weird
I
way.
think when
Like,
he's
you know what I mean?
dying,
Like
like, kinda like he admits that his way is wrong, and the I guess if we're gonna use this terminology that I dislike, and I'm doing it under protest, but I'll go along with it. But like he admits, like the blue Rutherford was like, okay, you're going about life the right way. I was going about life the wrong way.
right.
Um, so yeah, I
Redemption.
guess in a way, like he does like redeem himself because he admits that he's wrong. He
He
sees the
totally
light
does.
in like the
Yeah.
crucial moment right at the
He
end.
sees something, he sees a spark, a bright future. Obviously he doesn't exist. It's not like you can change the past. This wasn't a time travel story, you know what I mean? But like in a weird way, that's what I mean, in a meta way, I guess you could say. It does that. It gives us that story, which is kind of cool that you know, to like put it in one episode.
I
You know,
liked
like
how
in that way.
how cold hearted they made him right at the beginning though, just to
Yeah,
show you the contrast. That he literally makes Barnes cry.
I'd want to
It,
punch that guy's face, like for real.
yeah, and he has like no remorse. And like, and then we're worried. Oh, he's gonna go after Tindy. We're worried. The blue Rutherford and the reflections is worried, and yeah, like when he's freaking out from blue Rutherford punching himself in the face, trying to scramble the implant or whatever. Tindy's concerned. She's like, what's going on with you? When she tries to scan him, that's when he shoves her.
Yeah. I know you'll talk about it in the Gornegs, but that little cameo in this scene that you're talking about was pretty cool by the TOS thing.
I like that Shax and Tiana got to be like Starfleet professionals. They weren't played for jokes in this episode. Don't get me wrong, I love when they're doing their crime play on the holodeck like last week. I thought that was hilarious. But here they're treated as like super serious Starfleet officer type, bridge crew characters. They could have been on like any of like the legacy Star Trek shows. So you have the Shax in pursuit of Rutherford and uh, that whole thing of like you're not going to be able to beam down with the ion field on the planet, but
That's
you
right.
should know that, baby bear. And
Oh,
And
and
even
he's like my you call me Baby Bear? That's lame, man.
oh yeah,
Or
yeah, my
something like
nickname is Baby Bear.
Baby Bear.
But the good Rutherford, blue Rutherford's able to stall long enough to stop red Rutherford long enough for Shax to stun him, which I'm a big fan of. Like, yeah, you can stun people in Star Trek. Just like whenever someone's causing problems, just make them go
Just
take a
stun
nap.
them.
Like
Did you say
stun
something
stun
like
first, ask questions later.
yeah, didn't you say something like you'd probably stun people like just as a precaution like like you would
Yeah.
just be like, "Oh, I don't like the look of you. I'm stunning you."
Yeah, I mean, like there's zero consequences to stunning people, right? Like, I mean, I guess they could like
I mean,
fall
they
and
could
like bump
yeah,
their
they
head
could
or
bump their
something.
heads.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
you
like
got to be
the
careful.
medical technology is pretty good. You can have that patched up by the time they wake up, you know?
But like you are taking away it's not that there's zero consequences for stunning. You are kind of taking away someone's agency a little bit.
Like in
So
First
you
Contact, when Zephram Cochrane's trying to like run away, and Riker's just like, "Ah, we don't have time for this." And he's like, yes, it's like stun people. Like, I
I
love
love
it. Uh,
it.
Red Rutherford is like really smart though. You know, he's a little conniver, isn't he? Because like, okay, yeah, the best thing to do if you're trying to escape the Cerritos is beam to the captain's yacht, fly away on this fast warp capable ship. That's probably your best shot at escape. So, and he likes racing around in fast little ships, as we'll see later.
Yeah, he's an interesting character in that regard because he was definitely a show off, which is, something we know Rutherford's very clever, but he's a lot more modest about it
Yeah, and more of a
as we've
team player.
right, more of a team player as we've come to know him. So it is interesting to see this side of Rutherford, and I do like that comes into play later with the drag race or whatever. What do we call it? Like the divorce. What was it? Devron race. The Devron race.
Yes.
Like yeah, it's cool.
Which Deveron, that's gonna be an interesting Gorn egg. There's a
Yeah,
ton of
totally.
Gorn eggs, but if you don't know, those are Easter eggs in jokes and continuity connections. I like to go over those at the end of the show. So there was a lot packed. This was almost like going back to season 2. What was it? Kayshawn, his arms open or whatever. It was a lot.
Okay, Kayshawn had a great line. I can't remember it off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but
we'll talk
he
about
had a
that
good
too because
one.
I love
The Temerian
the
line, the
Temerian
Temerian
language. Yeah,
language. Yeah, awesome.
but I guess let's get into like the mindscape stuff. You know,
Yeah, that's
we
like
have
such a great part.
so we have Rutherford in a coma in sickbay. Dr. Tiana tells us, something weird going on in his brain, like two different sides. A dominant personality trying to come up to the surface. It was one from about a decade ago. So the show is still in the year 2381. Don't believe Memory Alpha. Memory Alpha says 2382, but the people who edit Memory Alpha are too stupid to understand star dates, which a lot of the Star Trek writers are also. But yeah, it's still 2381. So about a decade ago, that would be like around like season 1 Voyager, around like the time of like Star Trek Generations, like season 3 Deep Space Nine. So I guess that would have been like around the time, Rutherford's a first year cadet, but decade could be like give or take a year or two.
Mm.
She might not have known like the exact. In fact, if you look at like some of the comm badges later, it kind of looks like it should have been even earlier. But
We get a nice little explanation later about all the uniforms. I can't wait. But go on, sorry.
but it was nice being able to see the young Rutherford. See, we can't call him Red Rutherford when they're in the Mindscape because he doesn't have the implant yet, so there's nothing red.
We can be dynamic and call him young Rutherford
Okay.
for when we talk about these scenes.
Okay.
I loved in that Mindscape thing that like the horizon or the sky was the brain, like was a brain basically.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool. Like that was
instead
neat.
of just being like the white void we've all seen like 1,000 times.
Right.
That was cool to put like a little bit of a unique spin on it. I have never seen something quite like that before.
Yeah, it was a very neat choice. I liked it. And was it like thundering and lightning, or is that my imagination? I feel like that might have been something. There was something going on,
Might have
like
been.
activity or something like that. But yeah. But that scene where they're like figuring out how the imagination works, like that also ties in really nicely. Like it was just I like the way it layered they kind of layered it, and like it like well they like after they like fetched their favorite tricorder or whatever,
Yeah.
like out of their
And Rutherford
imaginations.
wanted the T-88 from
Right.
from the Vancouver,
Yeah, it was very cool.
the cool one with the purple stripe. And we see like their garage where they used to build the hot rods.
A hideaway garage that Rutherford like kept and went to while he was in the academy, and made these like racing vehicles, I guess, which is interesting. And we get, what was that? Did you recognize the ships other than the Delta Flyer? Like, did you recognize that one ship that was in his garage that he was building? I guess it
I
was the one. That's what he completes later. That's what it must be. It must be the ship that he
the
like,
Sampaguita,
the Sampaguita. Yeah, I
which
think
let's say
that's what it is.
I didn't know what that word meant, but it's like it's a Filipino flower.
It's the national flower, if I'm not mistaken, of the
Is this
Philippines.
the
Yeah.
first time that I've always assumed that Rutherford is Filipino because Eugene Cordero is Filipino, but is this the first time they've confirmed it within the show?
As far as I'm aware, it's the first time
I
that
mean, I guess
they
it still
have.
isn't a confirmation, but I mean, like, if you name your ship the Sampaguita, you're probably Filipino, right?
And if I'm not mistaken, Samanthan is probably, it's a very like distinctly Filipino name, but I'm not sure.
I That'd be news to me. I think that they were just trying to give everyone like silly first names,
Oh,
like
is that right? Like
Bradward,
Bradward? Oh, okay.
or what's Billups's for and
I could have
because they
sworn
call
I've.
him Andy, but it's like
I feel like I've
Andrello or
known a
something.
Bradward though, and I feel like I've also known a Samanthan. Hold on.
Okay, I've never known either. I'm not saying that it ain't out there, but
Oh,
not
so
very common. And
Samanthan is a real name meaning serene, I think, and I'd have to look a little further. I'd have to Google a little further. But it says the name might actually have Hebrew origin, so told by God. So actually not Filipino, but so there we go. Good old Google. Thanks a lot.
we get some explanations in here though, of like why has this implant always been buggy? Why did Rutherford like pairs for a little bit all of a sudden?
Yeah, he like says that was me trying to get through. That was
Yeah.
interesting.
Why did he like all of a sudden like he was like into Barnes again? Like maybe the young Rutherford, Red Rutherford, maybe he's the one who is really attracted to Barnes. That was him trying to his personality trying to come through. The one
Well,
thing
if we
that
look,
doesn't
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was just say if we look at it from that sense of like, yeah, he's had this like personality locked in. It's like another layer I guess we could add to this episode is like the multiple personalities, and he's been suppressing one personality. So yeah, it leaks through here and there. But what were you gonna say?
The one thing that doesn't track, that doesn't make sense, is that in the first episode of the show, Second Contact, when they introduce Rutherford, they're like showing Tindy around the ship, and Mariner's like, "Oh, look, it's Rutherford. What's up, Rutherford? You got that date with Ensign Barnes tonight?" Um, and Rutherford's talking about like his implant is being glitchy, but he's talking about like it's like a new implant. And like, okay, if you had like this accident like a decade ago, like how was that implant new just last year? Like,
Well, we don't see the implant that they actually put on him, so maybe they'll when we get more flashbacks, we'll see a slight difference in it. But it is interesting because it's a Vulcan implant,
yeah.
and that's an interesting thing too. Like, why would he have a Vulcan
Or
implant? Like,
had they
it's
like
like
upgraded it? Had they erased more of his memory at some point?
at
Maybe
some
there's a
point, yeah.
plan. I wouldn't put it past Mike McMahan because he does seem to be a dude with plans who thinks about this type of shit a lot. So I don't know. Maybe it will make sense, but maybe not. We'll just have to be patient on that one and wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's cool because I like mysteries. The series, we're only in season 3, and so assuming the show will go on for 5 or more seasons, they have
Mike
plenty of
says he
time.
wants to do 7.
7. So yeah, okay, cool. So assuming the show goes on for 7 seasons, we have plenty of time, as you said, to build up to that. But I do love when you get a lot of questions answered about a mysterious character, but then you have more questions after as well, and this episode does that kind of beautifully. It like answered a lot of questions, but now I'm like, oh wait, but yeah, like what we were talking about now, like what's the deal, like who is he working for, like what was their plan, like why were they using him, why'd they need this, like hotshot engineer brain, and what was he doing? It's very interesting.
It does feel like a little weird. This is like the problem you have with like dreamscape stuff is like shouldn't like in like a dream world like things just be like super weird and uh I guess it would just get too crazy if you didn't try to present it as like somewhat grounded in reality. It's kind of like the problem with like Inception. Inception is a movie that takes place within dreams, but people are just like driving cars and shooting guns and doesn't get into like weird crazy if you just like imagine anything territory. But their way to resolve their conflict here, figure out who will be able to take over the Rutherford consciousness. They're going to do an engineer off by seeing who can build and pilot the best, fastest racing ship. But it kind of plays by like like the rules of reality. I assume like they are still like impulse engines doing impulse things. If you get shot by the Romulan disruptors, it's like an actual like damage to your ship.
For me, it tracked with like a dream like reality, but it was more close to like a holodeck simulation. But maybe
Mm.
it's because I thought of it more as like not necessarily like imagination, but like looking into actual memories. Obviously the Delta Flyer isn't, but like some of the scenes like in the garage and like these are like things that he's now constructing from actual memories and seeing them maybe for the first time or
Yeah,
something like that.
and now that like I talk about this out loud with someone, and it occurs to me that if anyone would like be sticklers for like how the science actually works, it would probably be like engineers. Like
Right.
even in their dreams, all like the rules of
Right.
physics would apply and
Would apply.
everything.
Yeah, it would. It makes it because sometimes dreams do like I would say that the majority of my dreams that I remember are dreams that are like really mundane, like having a conversation with someone and not being able to remember what I was talking about, or being at a place that I've been to before. That when I
Sure.
wake up, they don't seem like reality, but they do seem like it was close to it. Like
Most people
they
don't have
feel
like
that.
big
Yeah.
budget dreams. I do sometimes, but I know like I'm kind of like I'll have dreams that have like
I like that.
dragons or dinosaurs in them or stuff like that.
I
But
love
they're like
that way of describing it
it's
too.
kind of weird. But yeah, but it even me like not all my dreams are like that. Most are not.
This was definitely a big budget type of imagination dream
Well,
trip
not
down
if
memory
you live
lane.
in the Starfleet or if not if you live in the Star Trek universe because you see like spaceships flying around and stuff like that all the time. So it would be mundane to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
What did you think when you saw the Delta Flyer as someone who is just kind of exploring the later seasons of Voyager for the first time now in recent years? I actually love the ship, but what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, I'm really kind of looking for it actually. It's one of the most beautiful ships of modern kind of Star Trek, like as far as like a smaller, style ship goes. I love the Delta Flyer design, and I'm really bummed out that I never pushed the button and got the model from Eagle Moss. So I got to find it and see
Oh,
if
I
I
have
can.
one. It looks
That's
the
awesome.
shuttles look great
Yeah, they
because
all look great.
they're
Yeah.
they're a little bit more detailed because they're smaller, so the scale is yeah. They're Starfleet boy looks like he has like the Danube runabout,
Yeah, I have
which
a
I
couple. I also have the El Baz style from the one that the little one from I'm not I know we have an audience that can't see these things, but I just have the little. I have a lot of the shuttles. I love the shuttles. They're awesome.
the
So
Delta
yeah,
Flyer would be my favorite single shuttlecraft slash
type.
runabout slash small ship in
Yeah, because
Star
it's
Trek
not tiny.
ever.
I mean, like if you
Well,
see someone standing next to it, it's pretty big. Yeah.
the reason why it's not my favorite is because the inside is bigger than the outside, and it kind of now that like I've figured that out, it bothers me every time I see it.
Did you
So
feel like they stuck to that, or did they adjust it? Like, did they fix it?
no,
I feel.
it's never fixed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I figured it out when Voyager was like still on the air, and
Well, okay, if we're gonna
it
talk
bugs
about
me a
that,
lot.
Father, I feel like there's a long running gag about the Voyager shuttle bay being just like way more expansive
Yeah,
than it could possibly be.
yeah, the
Like,
Delta Flyer and Neelix's ship, neither one should fit in the Voyager shuttle bay. Yet they both do.
there's nothing in the secondary hull. It's all shuttle bay. That's funny, but anyways, yeah, I think you answered your own question, I guess, about about the accuracy of dreams. But there is wild shit going on in this race. By the way, I wanted that race sequence. I want that as a video game, like, but like Super
Mm.
Nintendo style, like like not
Oh
even
yeah.
like, do you know what I mean?
I
Like
want it, but I want it in like 16-bit graphics.
16-bit graphics, yeah, like,
Which
but
would
with
be
Mode 7,
weird
like
because by the
with
time Voyager was on the air, like by the time the Delta Flyer came into existence, like PlayStation and Nintendo 64 would have been around. But
yeah, it's true.
maybe like it could have been like a Game Boy game or something from like
Yeah.
1999 or 2000.
All I know is I want this game. I feel like this game should be fast tracked to production and offered on. I mean, with the Romulan Warbird and every, like, I want it
Does
all.
does this make you because this race is actually based on something that's in a Voyager season 7 episode. But
Oh, yay!
so
That's
does
cool.
this
I
make
don't
you
know. It'll
excited
be.
to watch more Voyager?
It does actually. So that's cool. I did know. I feel like I did. I think I know about that episode, and so it was pretty delightful because I've always admired those uniforms. I haven't seen them yet. I don't think.
Hmm.
I don't know if they
Yeah,
introduced them
it's
yet, but
one of the first it's an episode called Drive. I'll talk about it in the Gorn Eggs, I guess, but it's
all right.
season 7, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, somewhere there near the beginning.
Oh, okay, cool.
But yeah, in the dream, they added the complication of the, I guess, Romulan Warbird to add some intensity to the race. That would be like a very daring way to race, though. Is like, oh, we're gonna race in the neutral zone. Romulans might decloak and start shooting at us. So like,
Yeah.
are you brave enough to race the Devron system race?
The Devron
That's
run.
really
The
cool.
Dever run.
But I loved the reason why good Rutherford, blue Rutherford, is able to triumph is that he values friendship, he values camaraderie, he values his shipmates, teamwork, all of that good stuff. I love like the solidarity message, the friendship message, all that stuff that like Lower Decks does so much. So yeah, when he has his whole little crew on the Delta Flyer, and to make it like even more Starfleet on top of that, he is like, oh, this guy's getting shot up. Let's beam him on board. Let's save him. And Rutherford is like, he's so sweet and so nice and so innocent, and he's like trying to save his like evil dickhead past self. You
Yeah,
know,
it's true.
it's really quite touching. I got pretty emotional during I guess like the death scene stuff, but that's where we get the extended flashback where we see the additional context. Not everything, but
Wow, that's gory.
yeah,
I hadn't seen a that's crazy. Sorry, go on.
yeah. The injury is pretty nasty looking. That explosion did a number to him.
Oof.
But we saw a glimpse of this back in season 2 in the finale episode, first contact, when he had to delete stuff. Then he kept getting those pop-up errors on his implant because he had too many backups saved of all
Yeah.
his good memories with Tindy. So when he was dealing with that, we got a glimpse of here, and some of this dialogue can be heard then where
Yeah.
he's talking about like, oh well, we program that in, he'll think the implant was elective. But I have like the whole conversation here, so I'm just gonna recite it to you and then ask what you think about this. But these shady people installing the implant, one is in a red TNG era command uniform, but the conversation goes, this is going to set us back years. How much do you want to erase? Everything that has to do with me or the program. That's a lot. He'll come out with a totally different personality. I don't care. What do we do if someone asks why he has it? We programmed that in. He'll think it was elective. So with all of this additional context now to the Rutherford mysteries, what do you think is going on here?
I think so. Where did we place this around? When you said like the 10 years prior, it was like around DS9 season 3. You said
Yeah.
so.
Even though he has the guy has the comm badge from like seasons 1 and 2 of DS9, or like all of
Well,
Next Generation.
when did
But
TNG ended before this? So it would have taken place around generations,
Right.
perhaps.
But in
So,
Generations they had already switched over to the Voyager comm badge. But maybe this guy has like the old comm badge from like 6 months earlier.
well, you've been watching DS9. What big fresh thing could this guy be a part of that was like a conspiracy or like a big deal
Um,
in that
it
time?
would have been around the time that first contact with the Dominion was made.
And we are going to
But
DS9 next week. I wonder if there's going to be some clues to Rutherford's past tying into events from
could
DS9.
be. I
Like,
don't
yeah,
I don't particularly think that would be the case, but I might be wrong. I know that next week's supposed to be more of a Tindy focused episode.
right
But
on.
I guess also around this time, the Maquis were really getting the Maquis were really popping off for the first time.
There's a Gornag of Ensign Rowe. You have that one? Oh, okay. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I
I
might.
didn't catch any Ensign Row stuff, but
Okay,
yeah, this would
maybe
have
I
been
have
like
a
around the
Gornag.
time I heard defection to the Maquis. Shortly after that, the end of Next Generation. So
It'd be interesting, like if Rutherford, based on his like personality and the way that he acted back then, was a somehow involved in some kind of like Maquis infiltration thing, like
could
how
be.
Tuvok
Although
was or
he,
whatever.
the Maquis always, even though they're supposed to be like these badass renegades, they always come off as like very principled in like their own way. And
Hmm.
this Rutherford seems a little too selfish and too much of a loner.
But
Um,
maybe he runs like maybe he acts like a runner of some kind. Like maybe the
yeah,
Federation's
maybe like they
not.
were like paying him in ship parts or something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he could have had something to do with them, but
Or I don't know, but like also he says the program set back the
right.
program,
So that
so
kind of makes it sound like something like Section 31 ish, but
ish, yeah.
I think that's a little too obvious. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say like I don't think this is Section 31. I think it's like some other bad moral type activity.
I wonder if
Uh,
the audience has any ideas.
yeah, I'd be
But
curious to hear people's theories. Because I suspect we'll be speculating on this, well after season 3. We'll still be trying to figure out what exactly happened here.
it's a good mystery drop. I like it. It's very interesting, and also I like that it is. I don't know. I don't know if any of it'll come to pass, but it's an era that we know about. So whatever's
Sure.
happening is happening during a time that we like in the history of like stuff we've seen. So it's interesting.
But I got emotional at like the death of like the younger Rutherford
Yeah.
because of the way where he's like don't lose those friends and thanks for one last race. And that really like hit me hard. And then especially after that when he wakes up and he said when Tindy's like, Rutherford, are you okay? And he says, yeah, I'm Okey-dokey. And then like she breaks down and starts crying just like out of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that made me tear up a little bit. And then we know like Shax and Tiana have this relationship, and then like you see like them on like the side of the screen. Shax puts his hand on Tiana's shoulder, like as they're like watching like this touching moment. It's like all of that just yeah, it was pretty moving. It made me tear. I'm getting like goosebumps now talking about watching it for the first time and my reaction. So
Yeah, I cried both times that I watched the episode this week, and got really emotional the third time. And yeah, so it really that hit me too. It was good. It was just damn good. It was a good moment.
I have
It's like really really touching.
I have one last thing on the, I guess, Rutherford A story before we talk about the Mariner and Boimler B story, but just the kind of like the theme and the message here of yeah, like we do change, and like the person that you were, like that past self, like that part of you kind of has to die for like the new you to exist. But it's important to like remember that stuff. And the fact that like you're different now, it means that like you've learned and that you've grown, and that's kind of like a natural process and honestly like a good thing. So I liked that being illustrated and explored here in this
I can,
episode.
on a personal level, I can definitely relate. I feel like if older Starfleet boy went back and met younger Starfleet boy, he'd be like, "You're a dick."
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
I would not be as kind to my past self as Rutherford was when he's
yeah,
like,
it'd be pretty hard on
you know, like when
myself
he's like,
too.
you know, can I save you? Do we need to like merge together? Do we need to integrate? I don't know if I would be like, no, young father, you're an asshole. Like,
I'd be like, I have no idea how you made it to my
yeah,
age, young Starfleet. I have no
like like
idea.
18, 19-year old me. Like I thought I was like so smart. Like I thought like I knew so. I was like, no, like you were so stupid.
We were pack lads that thought we were like Geordies.
It's like the older I've gotten, I've just like I've come to understand how dumb I am like over time. Like that's kind of like that's what I've learned how little I know, you know.
Some might say, Father, that is the true truth and wisdom there that you're speaking.
Yeah. And oh, I know I said that like I was all done with this stuff, but I just thought of like one last thing. The notion of like merging them together would be like killing them both. I agree, and that's why it would have been wrong not to save Neelix and Tuvok in Tuvix. I think Janeway did the right thing. I'm gonna stand by that. So there you go.
Yeah, 100%. I don't even know why that's even a question.
Yeah. If me and Starfleet would get merged together, I beg you, like, please, like, unmerge us, like, please.
Yes, I want to
It would be
live.
the right thing to do.
I give all the Janeways out there permission to kill Father Hale or what
Yeah,
would we
yeah,
be?
Father Hell.
Father Hale.
All right. On that note, let's move on over to the B story with
so good.
Merrick and Boimler having to do recruitment at the job fair. I like going back to what is it, Tulunga 4, right? Is the name of the planet?
Tolgana,
Tolgana. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Tolgana.
Father boy, says Uncle Arthur, by the way.
that's,
Yes.
weird, isn't it?
That's
That
a
kind of
weird
works
one.
though.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, thanks for that, Arthur.
Yeah, Tolgana 4, the first episode, right? Like their second episode, is it?
Yeah, Envoy is
Yeah.
the second episode, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like yeah, it's a very like American experience. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but the military like loves to recruit like they'll like you know they'll come in like our high schools and be like, hey,
Yeah.
teenager, do you want to go like serve in the armed forces? And it kind of reminded me like a bit of that, but yeah, like it was fun seeing like all the different people set up at the job fair, and the interesting thing of like Mariner being forced, like, you know, she's still on that probationary period. You know, she's not allowed to mess up anymore. So if she doesn't do a good job, she's going to Starbase 80. And they remind us that at the beginning of the episodes, you know, that the high stakes. So the fact that she's having to like put a lot of effort into promoting Starfleet and making it sound like a cool thing and everything, and then having to defend it with her foil for this episode, we get the archaeologist Petra Aberdeen.
Love her. She's up there with Vash for me. Like,
yeah, she's very much inspired by Vash.
Yeah, totally.
From the, you know, Picard's archaeologist fling from a couple TNG episodes. But yeah, the trolling of Mariner was kind of funny. Where, you know, she what all does Petra say? You know, she talks that Tellarite out of enlisting.
She says like oh, like you're not gonna have windows, like there's like ask her about the windows or something like that. And
yeah,
you're
gonna be in a room with no window, because he's like, do I have to go to the academy?
Years. Yeah, that's right.
She's like, no, you can be an NCO, you know, like Chief O'Brien, you know, you can be a transporter chief. And then Petra's like, oh yeah, and you have to like spend 7 years in a room with no windows.
NCO stands for non-commissioned officer.
That's right.
So yeah, but yeah, it's hilarious that like and then who was the one where she says, oh, like you'll turn into a Borg or something? Like they're just like,
yeah,
so many, like,
she tells like the Andorian dude. That's like
right.
Yeah, like Starfleet officers get assimilated all the time. And then they're having to like take shit from the collectors and the conspiracy theorist. And
oh, there was also the gag about a pseudo navy. That made me laugh so much too. Like that they addressed like some of these like real
The
debates
meta
because I
stuff.
the meta stuff. Yeah, it was like super funny.
Because it actually makes sense that some of these conversations, we have in the fandom, like is Starfleet a
They would
military?
have them in universe 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Like the layman, the outside of Starfleet person would totally be asking questions like these people were.
Yeah, and we can't even like make up our minds on that. So the people in the universe might also be like a little divided on that.
These
Um,
truthers were hilarious too.
yeah, the conspiracy theorists, like they found
Yeah.
out about like the conspiracy bugs, but somehow they got it twisted that they go up your butt instead of in your mouth.
But I love that. I love that Boiler's like, oh, that never happened, and then and then Mariner's like, well, no, actually, it might have happened, but now Boimler thinks they were butt bugs. Like it's just like really funny.
Yeah, I like that felt real too. That like Mariner had like kind of had like some awareness of it. I mean, like her dad is an admiral, so who knows what she's privy to. um, and the collectors talking shit to them. uh, but
Uh,
I've commented before how Lower Decks loves to do like this misdirect type joke, and I've gotten to the point where like I get a little flustered with those because I see so many of them coming before they happen. I did not see this like Boimler snapping instead of Mariner. It looks obvious now looking back because the whole episode's going like Mariner's about to lose it, Mariner's about to lose it, Mariner's about to lose it. But no, it's Boimler who goes crazy. But it felt so true to his character. Like yes, like he loves Starfleet. If you disrespect his rank, Pip, that especially now that he's bold Boimler, like yes, this is the thing that would make him go psycho like this. and, and it's so satisfying because we as Star Trek fans, like yeah, we want to defend Starfleet too, so
I've
we
gone psycho
him,
like this.
yeah, and like the rant, the dialogue, like the way that Jack Quaid delivered it was just some of the most hilarious stuff I've ever seen in Star Trek. I laughed out loud at the line about the doctor, like the doctor didn't spend 7 years in the Delta Quadrant for you fucks to question his agency. He's got rights. And it's so profane, like they're like beeping out so much, like he told a Ferengi to go beep. Like this
that was
possibly the most
too.
profane episode ever, not counting like Dr. Tiana's dialogue.
I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and I love that the one guy, the would-be recruit was like is that guy in Starfleet? And at first he was a cool
that gray alien
species.
Yeah, but I don't know, but we've seen them before. There was one on the Dove last week, but I don't think the species has a name. I think they're a creation of Lower Decks.
Oh, I like
there's
them.
A couple.
I feel like they're a little shiny. Like there's a metallic quality to them.
Every season, I think they plan to introduce like a new species of like
That's
background
cool.
alien.
Well, that was hilarious when they were like, is he in Starfleet? Because he's real. I want that kind of confidence. I'll sign up for.
Do you guys do engineering? Yeah, we have a whole division for that. Well, sign me up. Like that the enthusiasm there, and Mariner was doing a good job recruiting. She was like getting some signatures on them pads. So
Ransom walked in at the perfect moment. He was expecting to see Mariner, like, dude, and like when he saw like folks were all around the booth, like signing up and taking pads and stuff like that. And
when he's walking off of the shuttle, he's like, "All right, Mariner, you better be in that booth, getting some signatures." And then he sees that.
I have to say, I feel the wins for Mariner. Like when she gets a moment like this, like it feels really rewarding. Like I like the idea. I know she's a rebel and I want her to be one too, but it also feels nice when like people are like, oh wow, Mariner's awesome. Like she's doing her job. Like it's a cool feeling for her to get that moment.
Yeah, and there was some other like cool stuff down here. Like I liked that there was like a person from the Crystal Planet from was it the third episode of the show, Temporal Edicts, but they're asking like, how often do you collect dilithium?
Right.
And Mariner's like, tons of crystals all the time and stuff. And what else was going on down here that I liked? The go back in time to save Earth bit when Mariner's like, that's only happened 4 or 5 times. How many times has that happened, by the way? We have like City on the Edge of Forever, Star Trek 4, First Contact, I think Archer had to go back to Detroit and like stop the Zindi from. When did you have to
Oh,
go back to like
assignment.
save
Did you already
Earth
say
though?
assignment Earth?
They didn't have to go back to save
Oh, to
Earth though.
save
They
Earth.
went back
Okay.
for like historical
Right.
research. So yeah, I think that's actually accurate. It's only like 4 or 5
5
times.
times. Yeah, that's really funny.
But yeah, Ransom sees Mariner doing a good job, and then he sees Boimler just
Look at they're
going
cowering. I
crazy.
love it. It's like
Yeah, people
I
are like
love that scene.
terrified of him. The conspiracy truthers are like hiding behind a table, telling Ransom like, "I think that guy has butt bugs." But yeah, it was hilarious.
That's
And
so good. But he was great. Jack Quaid delivered an awesome freak out.
Yeah, I wish that I could have like seen him like recording this because I bet that would just be fun
Ooh,
to
maybe
just
that'll be on the
watch.
Blu-ray. That'll be
It,
fun.
it should be, yeah, that'd be incredible.
I don't know if they record. Do you think they record video at the sessions too? It would
Well,
help the
they
animators, I bet,
they
right?
do like
Yeah.
a. I don't think they do that out of but like I know that when they record, they all record like at home and they record with someone like on a call with them, like on like Skype or Zoom or something. And I know that Mike McMahan is there for at least for like Tawny and probably Jack. I don't know if he's there for like every single voice actor, but he's there. He's there for them. But yeah, I see in our live audience, Linda Marks says that she loved the mention of the Doctor, and yeah, I really liked that too. That was my biggest laugh out loud moment in this whole episode. Um, and Thomas is pointing out there are so many familiar aliens that we see down
And
here.
new ones, yeah, like so many different species, and yeah, it's cool.
But I don't know if I have anything else on the B story stuff. Do you have anything else to add before we talk about the ending?
No, but just going through that scene like made me realize I want to go and watch it again. It's so good. It's so fun.
Yeah, it was such a like the build up and then payoff of it all. It was so effective. One of my favorite moments in the show of all time. It just happens to be in an episode that made me enjoy Rutherford so much more. So yeah, this episode. And oh, and another thing, like I mentioned, there's nothing in this episode that felt like too weird or too goofy or too silly for the Star Trek universe for me. So nothing for me to like nitpick or bitch about on that front. So yeah, just all around, like this was just a great experience. One of my favorite episodes of the show, and the best of the season thus far, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree with that.
Then the ending, we have bold Boimler being sent to the brig, and Boimler is a little embarrassed. He's telling Ransom, I hope I didn't lose any respect. I hope you don't think less of me. But Ransom's like, oh, I think that's really cool that you were repping Starfleet like that. And yeah, when you're out of the brig, let's go get a drink. I want you to tell me about it. So that was cool. And then instead of Mariner being the one in the brig, she is the one being the responsible Starfleet officer. Their little graffiti inside of the brig, there's the little cartoony crayon drawing of Mariner's HQ castle. But now next to it, we have Boimler's guest house, and everyone is just hanging around next to the brig on the outside of the force field instead of visiting with Mariner, visiting with Boimler. So that was a cool little twist on a familiar type scene, and reminding us that the Rutherford mystery continues. They know that it was some big Starfleet high-ranking officer from 10 years ago who is responsible for his implant, but they don't know who. So that mystery will continue.
Yep. I think I'm excited about that mystery a lot. I think it's gonna be really neat for the show. I like this where it's headed so far.
Yeah, and like I said, like I don't know if we'll get more of the Rutherford mysterious backstory stuff in season 3. They might be saving it for season 4 before we get more info on it. But there's definitely something to be had there. So it's a good way to keep us invested. I like that these characters grow, that it feels organic. Yeah, I'm also really curious what's going to happen with Bold Boimler and with Mariner. Is she going to learn to be a more functional Starfleet officer? Here we have her going and doing the mission log at the end of the episode, the very and final scene. But she gets that call from Petra, who is like, "Yeah, I was only being an asshole to cause a distraction, so I could rescue the Negus staff from the museum down there. But you seem to be pretty cool, so if you ever want to leave Starfleet, and kind of sounds like you want to, given your past, you can always become an independent archaeologist like me. Save my number." And Mariner saves the contact info and has this kind of uncertain look on her face. We last see her looking out the window, unsure about her future. So let me ask you, do you think that Mariner might end up, leaving Starfleet? She does seem to have like a way out. So what's going to happen with this?
Whether she does it or not, I like this scene because for me, it reminded me that there are other options for these characters. Like maybe she's not a fit for Starfleet. Maybe that's what she's been fighting this whole time, is that like, maybe Mariner is just not a Starfleet person. I mean, she has like a lot of legacy with it, with her parents being, so important. You have an admiral and a captain, that's a big deal, and so
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me of like perhaps in in real life I see it, with military families, kind of like generational military families. There's such a thing, like it's like so it's like it reminds me of that a little bit. So I do like the idea, but in general, whether you want to look at it from that lens or just the lens of like, you know going off and doing your own thing, or versus, doing what everyone else does. And Mariner clearly, I think, she's been giving it a fair shot, doing the play by the rules thing. But maybe she's destined for other things. I like the idea of Mariner becoming like an archaeologist too, for some reason. Like that, like a space archaeologist just seems like a cool fate for her in the future. So I don't know. But there is also part of me that's like, I want to see her, get captain. Any of my favorite characters, of course, I want to see them become a captain one day. But I do like that there's this option for this character that's not that.
I think it is very good drama to give her this option. I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but I think that she'll end up, staying in Starfleet. I don't know. She might leave temporarily. Boimler left the ship before and came back. I think something like that might happen. I'm curious, like, what if she continues to do like a really good job and she does everything right and is being like the good Starfleet officer people seem to want her to be, but then like something blows up, something doesn't quite work out, and she catches like the blame for something, even though like she was like trying and like doing all the right things or whatever. And because like she like catches blame for something, like she's like, what, screw this, I'm gonna bounce, something like that. I know that Tawny Newsome is in season 4, though. Like, she's talking about like recording the dialogue for season 4 and stuff. So she'll still be in the show. I don't think that she's leaving the ship, but yeah, it might be a temporary thing. I just think that Mike McMahan, how he's making the show such a big love letter to Star Trek, though, and to like the people who do like the little unimportant jobs on the ships that we don't tend to see much of and all the other shows. The fact that that's kind of like the whole premise of the thing. I think that it'll eventually end up with her wanting to be there and embracing it and finding like the good stuff in Starfleet.
You see,
And
I never thought of it as like potentially having less Tawny. I didn't think that. I think this is a seed planting for the end of the series. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is like the kind of thing, or maybe like a midlife crisis, a mid-series crisis. Like she might leave Starfleet for a little while, and then
right,
perhaps come back or something like that. But I didn't think of it as like Tawny, or Mariner being
yeah,
less
yeah, they're
involved.
not getting rid of Tawny Newsome.
Yeah.
Like, she's
I do see in the audience though, folks are saying like, I don't want this group to break up, but I feel like the show's give at least this season is giving us the strongest kind of vibes of that, that like not necessarily that we'll see them, kind of grow apart during the series, but I feel like the end of the series has to end with them maybe going off to do other assignments, like finally
yeah,
actually
it's like
separating,
a
it's like,
like high school graduation. Like, you
right.
different people go do different stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
I think they are going to be separated at some point. Maybe eventually they come back together and they all serve on the same ship in the future. But yeah, I'm definitely very curious about like the future of all 4 of these people. Where will they end up? Uh just it's such a great hook, to keep me watching season after season. The trajectories that they set these people on, it feels like there's movement, that they are going somewhere, that
Oh
they are
yeah,
changing, that they are growing as
yeah.
people,
The
and yeah, and
characters
I'm
are really evolving. And one thing that's interesting is that like, I think the show is interesting in the sense that like, well, I don't know about you, but like I've had previous jobs where I'm still in touch with some of those folks, like a group of them, and we all get together pretty regularly and stuff like that. And so I feel like there's got to be like that, Jean-Luc wasn't a good example. He didn't stay in touch with Marta or, like folks, or maybe he did. Maybe they had a weekly conference call that we never saw on screen, like all his buddies from Ensign days or whatever, So I think that would be interesting if Lower Decks like, continued to Lower Decks the movie, and it's like these guys are like on their next assignments or whatever. I don't know. It's like but they're definitely going to grow apart. I know that, like, not necessarily as friends, but like from each other in terms of their proximity. They're going to grow apart because they'll definitely be assigned to other things eventually. It's just how life is.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I can definitely see that message and that theme being incorporated into the story of the
Yeah.
show. It almost seems like kind of an obvious place to take it. Not saying that it's certain, but I think that's a strong likelihood. But yeah, I don't. Mariner having the opportunity to leave Starfleet is interesting, because there's always kind of been like this question lingering, like, why does she stay in Starfleet? She doesn't like following the rules. She's
Right.
really good at like the space exploration and like solving problems, helping people, all of that stuff, but she's not good at like this hierarchy. She's not good at staying in line and minding her manners and following orders like a good little soldier. That's not her. So why does she do it? Why does she stay in Starfleet? And maybe it is, like the family pressure. Like that's kind of what she felt she was expected to do. So she's just like went along with it. Is she going to be like,
And
oh, I'm
and a
unfulfilled by
noble.
this, I need to do something else? Or will she, the other possibility is like by the end of this, like she'll come out being like, oh, now I know why I prefer being in Starfleet, why I love it, why I could never bring myself to leave. And maybe this could also lead to a validation of her staying in Starfleet, and make her grow that way.
Yeah, I dig that too. I want her to be happy ultimately as a character. So whatever makes Mariner happy is gonna be awesome. But it would be interesting because I think I don't know if we have too many characters like that other than like Ensign Rowe, or like who else is a character that like leaves Starfleet. Um, I guess Jean-Luc in a way does it.
FYI, Ro was a lieutenant when she left, but
Oh, sorry, Lieutenant Rowe. But you know what I mean. Like, there's not a lot of characters that leave. So it'd be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It was very compelling. I like Petra though. I think Petra is also someone who I think Mariner could learn from, and learn things that she couldn't learn in Starfleet.
yeah. I'm curious to see what happens there. I'm curious to see what happens with Bold Boimler. I'm curious to see what happens with Rutherford's implant mysteries. I'm curious to see what happens with Tindy's growth into a science officer. It sounds like not only science officer, she's transitioning to like right, from medical to science, but specifically to be like a senior science officer. They even in this episode, or no, it was last week's episode, I guess they talked about her being a bridge officer someday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that growth, which we don't get a ton of Tindy in this episode, but she did get like my biggest emotional moment where I was like really teary-eyed was when uh Boimler tells her, yeah, I'm Okey-dokey, and she like cries in relief. And I know next week, the big DS9 episode that I am so anticipating. I've been waiting 23 years, Starfleet boy, to go back home to my beloved Cardassian space station. But Tindy's going to get some spotlight next week. So yeah, it's really cool. Like I said at the top of the show, things are very balanced. I feel like we're getting a lot with all four of our leads. Obviously, it skews more towards Mariner and Boimler, but the Rutherford and Tindy stuff has been great this season
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know if you have any other final thoughts before we go into this monster of a Gornegg section of the show?
Just that I love these discussions because they make me see things, so many fun things in the audience here, and I'm sure we'll see more comments on Twitter and stuff like that. But just seeing things from new perspectives and in different ways, but also just how awesome this episode. It reaffirms that I love this episode. It's a damn good episode.
Yeah. Yeah, very impressive. This is the most impressed I've been with the show all season long. And we have 5 more episodes, so who knows what they always save the good stuff for the second half of the season. So it's really, really exciting. This 3rd season of Lower Decks. Well, let's go into our Gorn Egg section of the show. That is all of the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections that I thought were worth pointing out. I'm going to try to run through this as fast as I can because there's a lot to spit out. But starting off, Tolgana 4. We go back to Tolgana 4, the planet introduced in Lower Decks episode 2, Envoy. But here we see the Starfleet booth set up with the little photo pop-up thing of Kirk and Spock in animated series style standing next to the Horta from Devil in the Dark, so that's cool to see.
Father, I don't know if anyone at Star Trek Mission Seattle is listening to your podcast, but if they are, I request that this booth be there, and Father and I will man the booth for a time.
We could make our own little we could make this little photo thing of like Kirk and Spock, and people can come take pictures as Kirk and Spock next to the Horta.
So I feel like this Starfleet recruitment booth, I hope to see it in at Mission Seattle. It would be awesome.
Then on Tolgana 4, we have the outpost scientists. We have the conspiracy truthers. The conspiracy truthers have all kinds like weird stuff hanging up in their booth, including like pictures of a Magato and Shaq. They actually have a conspiracy bug. The Collectors Guild at their collectors booth, they have all kinds of stuff. We have the Reckoning tablet thing from Deep Space Nine, the Bajoran relic. There's like some Strange New Worlds era Starfleet badges, a Klingon duck tag. There's the Spock helmet with the light on top. The Data bubble bath soap from An Embarrassment of Duplers. The little Gorn toy that's in Freeman's ready room, but there's like another one here. There's actually like this little Ferengi doll that was available at the Star Trek The Experience gift shop that I hate myself for never going to Star Trek The Experience before it shut down. But
Father, you already mentioned Geordi's visor, right? And also Spot, the painting of Spot.
Yeah, there's a one of Data's paintings of Spot, and there's also the artifact that Robin Curtis had in Gambit, the ancient Vulcan weapon.
The Destructo weapon.
Yeah, Stone of Gaul, I think it was called. And the collector aliens themselves, they're the same species as Kivas Fajo and Palar Toff from The Most Toys.
Right.
The Wadi are there from an episode of Deep Space Nine everyone hates, but I really like Move Along Home. But yeah, they're there, I guess, like selling games. They're gamers. Alamarain, indeed. They have like the little pieces from the Move Along Home game, the little board pieces. They have the game from the game, the orgasm visor thing, the disc and cone game.
Right. That game's called Chula, by the way, right? The actual game is called Chula. Alamarine is what you shout when you get to the next shap.
Yes.
But I don't know why I know all that.
Oh, they have the game pieces for Batleths and Batoks or Banots, their Klingon D&D game. We see some legacy Star Trek aliens that we had never seen on Lower Decks before. We have the Vorgon. I don't know if this Vorgon's from the 27th century, like the ones in Captain's Holiday, but there's a Vorgon walking around on this planet. There's Octurians. One of the conspiracy aliens was a Octurian. There's another one walking. They're kind of like the melty face. They were from the motion picture, one of the motion picture aliens. On the archaeologist guild booth that Petra's at, it has a ton of stuff. It has like that stone thing from For the World is Hollow and I've Touched the Sky. It has the obelisk from the Paradise Syndrome. We talked about Petra being very much Vash inspired. She served on the USS Victory. That was the Constellation starship. Speaking of the Stargazer, not the Gazer, they call it the Gazer, like the Star Trek Picard season 2 and season 3 production people. But the Victory was a Constellation class ship. That's the ship that they meet at the end of Elementary, My Dear Data. It also saw some action in the Dominion War. They mentioned the Victory in Deep Space Nine.
On. Look at that.
We talked about this, I think, back when they did the trailer for season 3, but Mariner's catchphrase of like, come join Starfleet. We have, what was it? Warp 10 excitement. Prepare yourself for Warp 10 excitement.
That's right. That's right.
That was from that's like a tagline on the back of the book of the novelization of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, from way back 40 years ago. Also, Discover the Undiscovered Country, a reference to Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And what else was on Tongana 4? I think that's all like the big stuff down there.
Yeah, I think the only
I'm sure
thing,
I missed things, but
I think the only thing I think you pointed out the Wesley, we saw those like little devices on the
the game from the game.
Yeah, the game from the game. Yeah, you already did. And then also Independent Archaeologists Guild. It's hilarious because they're independent and they're in a guild, but also it's indie, like indie archaeologists,
like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny.
Dun, 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 dun. Which used to be a Paramount thing, but I guess Disney took that away.
Oh, I guess.
Wah,
I guess
wah.
so. There you go. So no more Paramount Mountain in the beginning of the Indiana Jones.
That's not. Don't get me started on that.
All right.
Anyways, but yeah, there's plenty of more Gorn eggs though off of Tolgana 4. Back on the ship, Tindy talks about Rutherford's dream of being in an alternate timeline where Spock and Kirk have cinematic chemistry. I think Spock and Kirk have like really great chemistry in every timeline, but
it's true.
Must have been a reference to the Kelvin timeline. We talked about Ransom threatening to send Mariner to Starbase 80. Starbase 80 was first brought up back in season 1 of the show in the episode Terminal
Velocity.
What was it? Terminal.
Terminal. I can't remember either.
Terminal Provocations.
That's it. That's
something like that. The one with Fletcher. But I think it was episode 6.
You can't ask Starfleet boy, old man, to remember anything. Come on.
But anyway, Starbase 80. Apparently, it's a hellhole.
It is.
It's just like kind of like the worst starbase ever. So Boimler has kind of like the same reaction when Starbase 80 was brought up. When it's like Mariner like pushed Tiana into like her nachos on accident or something. She's like, if you're gonna goof around like that, go work on Starbase 80. Someone's like, damn, Starbase 80. And, here Boimler has kind of a similar reaction when Ransom says Starbase 80. He's like, no, not Starbase 80 or whatever. So no one wants to go serve at Starbase 80. But speaking of starbases, we learned that Rutherford transferred to the Cerritos from Douglas Station. That was the station we first saw in the first episode of the show, Second Contact, and it's popped up a couple times since then. Blue Rutherford and Red Rutherford accuse each other of being anaphasic aliens.
Right.
That was a reference to the
Ronan.
orgasm candle ghost, aka Ronan, from the beloved classic episode of The Next Generation, Sub Rosa.
I love that in universe that's like something you would go to because it is scary. It's the same way we would say like you got possessed by a demon. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, anaphasic aliens. If they're a real thing, it'd be freaky.
It'd be freaky.
Or it'd be sexy. If you're into that, like Dr. Crusher was.
It would be both.
There's no reason why it can't be both. We see in the repair bay the Omicron Ceti 3 spore plant from the side of Paradise. It's kind of funny when it keeps like spraying out its spores because that's what it does. Like it's trying to like spore them basically, but Tendi has a little dome over it. But yeah, like it spored Spock and everyone else back in this side of Paradise. We gotta talk about like uniforms. There is a lot of Starfleet uniform stuff in here. So Rutherford is actually wearing a cadet uniform under his cool jacket. He's got like that bad boy jacket. Looks really cool. I would cosplay the young Rutherford look. But he's wearing the cadet uniform that was first introduced in the Deep Space Nine episode Facets, uh, which has like the mostly gray with like those pockets and stuff on the legs. We also have one of the outpost scientists asking the question, like, why are the uniforms always changing in Starfleet? Which is a reasonable question, actually. Uh, Boimler has a good answer saying that, because there's always room for improvement. And look, I have a cool flap. But he's holding up pictures of the first 2-season TNG uniforms, also a TNG era dress uniform. We see a TNG season 3 and later era uniform during the implant surgery memory scene. And on board the Delta Flyer, Rutherford and his crew are wearing the race
Race
uniforms from the
uniforms. I
Star
love
Trek
those.
Voyager episode Drive.
Father, the next time you commission a Star Trek like a Tex-Trek painting, I'd like to be in that racer
In the
uniform.
race uniform.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, the race posters in Rutherford's garage, if you look at like the fonts on there, it has like that TNG blue font that Lower Decks also uses for like the Lower Decks logo, as well as there's a Devron race poster that has like the red bold like TMP Rathacon, like the TOS movie era uh, lettering. And Devron, I guess, is a reference to the Devron system, which was established to be in the Romulan neutral zone way back in All Good Things
Mm-hmm.
on the Next Generation. So good use of the universe there. The Delta Flyer, of course, being from Star Trek Voyager, first introduced in the episode Extreme Risk. And we even get it introduced here as being like under construction, which is how we first saw it in Voyager when they built it in season 5. And the interior has the same look, so that was cool. The Rutherford remember thing with the hand on the face, that was a clear nod to Spock telling Dr. McCoy remember in the Wrath of Khan, seen again in The Search for Spock. And then, of course, the Grand Naga staff that Petra liberates from the museum at the end. That belongs to the Nagus of the Ferengi Alliance. So we
Now,
saw that in DS9 a lot, which I hope Rom is still Nagus at this point. So I don't
yeah,
know
and
who took his
also,
staff, but
yeah, that's interesting that there's a whole story there. By the way, there's like a big story, like the losing and returning of the Nagus' staff, which is kind of fun
yeah, I don't know
to
what's
think
going
about.
on. Tolgana 4 is an interesting planet. I'm not, apparently they have a museum there with like stolen, stolen items from like the head
Stolen
of
items.
state of the Ferengi Alliance. So, uh, that's interesting. Yeah, Tolgana 4. I don't think Tolgana 4 is a member world of the Federation because there's a Federation embassy there. So it's cool that it's a cool place to tell stories. You have like all these different races and stuff like meeting on this one planet. It's kind of a cool setting.
It's kind of a cool thing too because it's kind of what the Farpoint Station was supposed to be like.
Right, like the Bandy
Um,
weren't trying to join the Federation, but they were trying to have like an outpost that
that
Starfleet would use. I
use
think that's
right,
what Tolgana 4 is. But
right.
we also the Klingons have a presence there. There's like a little Endorian town, a little Ryzen town. So yeah, it's interesting. I
Yeah,
would love to see it more. I would love if like another show other than Lower Decks decided to go there. Wouldn't that be
that
cool?
would be really cool. Actually, I agree.
Um, those are all the Gorn eggs I wanted to share with y'all, but I would love if y'all would share with us your reactions to this episode. People watching or listening to this later, please comment, reply to my tweets, let us know in the Tex-Trek Discord server. You can comment on the Tex-Trek Facebook page, but we love hearing responses of how people react to these episodes. We actually have a few from last week's episode, which you might remember. Like, I wasn't too crazy about last week's episode, so it's very refreshing to just utterly love this week's episode. After last week's was probably like the weakest one of the season. Not saying it was bad, but it was the weakest of the season for me. But I got
uh,
some.
Father, real quick though, there's a couple of Gorn eggs you did miss this week. One, Aaron Harvey posted on Twitter, so you have to go and check that one out. It's about that starship on the trophy. I forget. It's something that Matt Jeffries designed or something like that. I forget the exact particulars of it.
Oh, was it
And
the was it like the long range shuttle from the slaver weapon?
it might be. I can't. I could pull up the tweet if
Because
you really want to know, but Yeah, I
That's
have
what
it
I was.
here. I have it handy
That's what I was
actually.
kind of thinking, but I wasn't sure.
So it is. Hold on, I have it handy here. Let me pull it up. All right. So it's gotta love it's the AMT Leif Erikson Galactic
Right.
Cruiser Model Trophy.
Then
Yeah,
they
Bob Klein
later
used a
like
sketch
used
of
that. They later like used that as inspiration for the
and it is
shuttle
the
that we
slaver
see in
weapon.
the
Yeah,
slaver weapon.
exactly right. And Springtime points out, but we did mention it during the discussion. But the uh, Rutherford starship is the Philippines kind of
Yeah.
the name of the ship is
Oh, and you mentioned
the
there's like
flag.
there was a row thing, a Rolaren thing.
Oh yeah, so on one of the L cars, the close up, it's Ro Laren is hidden in the L cars. So Jurg posted that, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
I have to pay closer attention to those.
well,
Interesting.
that's a really tough one. So yeah, a couple, but you did a good job. There were a lot of crazy Gorn eggs, and you showed me ones that I hadn't caught. So I feel very satisfied with your Gorn eggs.
Yeah, it's always a lot of work on lower decks. But
I don't know how y'all
they're
commit to it.
fun.
I'm glad Starfleet Boy doesn't do Gorn eggs. We were less work.
Well, here's some subspace transmissions I have. I'm not gonna go through too many of them because I felt like we've talked about Gornegs so much, but probably time to end the show soon. But Thomas Hill on the YouTube said, I wish writers would create a new character for the engineering department that is an Anar as a nod to Hemmer from Strange New Worlds. I would love to see an engineering or any Enar at all. Enar,
Yeah, that'd
Anar,
be cool.
I always go back and forth on how I pronounce it. But yes, let's get some of them walking around on the Cerritos and lower decks. I'm all
It's
for
like
that,
people who
Thomas.
say Uranus.
Yeah, there's no elegant way to say the name of that planet. Just
It's
whatever,
true.
however you say it is going to sound terrible.
It's just gonna sound
So,
awful. Yeah, it's true.
also on YouTube, opinions no one cares about says, I loved that Tindy talked about exploring an ethical gray area, and then they had to sneak into the holodeck, which was a little gray area at the time. So yeah, a little double meaning there.
Oh,
I like it.
that is really cool. That's fun.
And in our Discord server, Dr. Dalsum, aka John Dawes, says, "Bold Boimler gonna die for being too bold." So yeah, with a bold Boimler, he's winning a lot of respect. Here he got the respect of those people who ended up signing up for Starfleet. He got the respect of Commander Ransom. We know that Cranch thinks highly of him. We know that so far, Shax owes him a favor. So we'll see if he's able to maintain this, or is Mariner going to be proven correct? Is it unsustainable?
May fortune favor the bold. Let's
We know
see.
that episode 8 of the show, that's going to be the big movie sequel to Crisis Point,
Oh, cool.
but with like Boimler's story. So I think maybe I think that might be where it comes to a head.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So
fun.
looking forward to that. Well, that'll be in 3 weeks. Wow, but next week the
Captain Bucephalus Dagger. I'm looking forward to meeting
yeah,
him.
that's in 3 weeks. But next week we're going back to Deep Space Nine.
I'm so
Which
excited.
people
And I
who
just can't hide it.
people who follow Tex-Trek for a while, y'all know how much Deep Space Nine means to me. It's probably my favorite TV show of all time. If
All
I could
time.
go anywhere in fiction, like if I could go to like any fictional setting ever, or anything that like existed in like real life history, anything. If I just like the place I would want to go most is I just want to like walk around the promenade of Deep Space Nine.
I
But
kind of I
I
wish you
miss
could
it.
have that dream. I wish there was like a set that you could walk onto. Like I'd pay real money to see to see you do
Real money. But
that.
yeah, we're gonna get a taste of Deep Space Nine next week. So the episode is actually called "Hear All, Trust Nothing." That's one of the rule. I think it's the 190th rule of acquisition. It's from
Mm.
that was from a Call to Arms, the season 5 finale.
Father, they were on a roll with the big cameos, and then they stopped. Do you think we'll get a big cameo next week
I
with
think that's a very safe bet.
yeah,
In
okay.
fact, I think Mike McMahan or Tawny or somebody when they were teasing this said
They
like
teased at
there
it.
might be like some familiar faces on the
Gotcha.
station. So
I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I'm looking forward to having a drink at Quarks. I'm looking forward to they got to show Morn, right? You can't go to DS9 and not have Morn there. So yeah, I'm very, very thrilled, and I hope that everyone checks out our show next week, and we can celebrate our return to the station together. Until then, though, we'll go ahead and sign off for now. But as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.